Good morning, my name's Tom, and today is getting back into a bit of fire making, self-reliance type videos, because as I've mentioned repeatedly in the past, you may have to rely on yourself here and there post-emergency, whether it's a hurricane, a flood, or anything like that, and being able to build an outdoor fire is important. Oh, and I'm stressing the words outdoor fire because unless you have a chimney that gets inspected and cleaned at least annually, and that's the bare minimum, you really shouldn't be doing fire indoors. You can asphyxiate yourself and your family doing that, as tragically people learn every year. So, I've got several options of knives to help us, and we're just going to kind of go through each. Now, in terms of fire making, actually getting the fire going, a Bic lighter, is, the most reliable thing. And, even though I do a lot with ferro rods on these videos, that should be your first go-to. Everything else is a backup after that. And yes, you should have backups. So I've already gone over the Mora Knife Companion HD. We've already modified this one on a video to give it a 90-degree spine for ferro rod starting. But, like I said, that's not really going to be a thing in this video. Got my Swiss Army Knife Huntsman, which, we'll be using the main blade on this, and I have sharpened it by hand using a multi-faced stone by Falkneven. So it's just got a plain bevel on it. Go over it with the coarse side, go over it with the fine side, and then strop it on the back of this with a little bit of stropping compound. It's great. Now this is the Victorinox S17 Swiss Army knife. And this has a locking blade, which I do like. I don't think I've shown this one on the channel before. I sharpened it with my Lansky Turnbox to a 25-degree angle, so it's regular secondary bevel that you can see, maybe, if I get the lighting right. There's a bit down here. That's not actually the cutting edge. It's got a micro bevel at 25 degrees on this, and we'll see if that affects anything. After I did it, I stropped it on the back of this. And I recently got the Mora Garberg, which is meant to cover the things that, do the things that they, out of the box, that the HD Companion cannot. So it came with a 90-degree spine. It's got a more corrosion-resistant coating on the blade. I've tested it a little bit, and I think it's pretty alright. It's a full tang knife. It's a lot more sturdy, but the handle's a little bit less comfortable, but firm grip on it. And I liked it enough that I used it. I decided to make its own leather, nice leather sheath instead of the cheapo one that it came with. So we have 4 pieces of wood that were split off of the same, not quite punkwood bit of hardwood. When I say punkwood, what I mean is it's softened a bit. And in order to make this usable, we need to feather stick it. Basically, like all things with fire, you start with smaller pieces and work your way up to bigger and bigger and bigger pieces till you get your fire going. So we're going to see how feather sticking works. First, we're going to use that Victorinox Huntsman with just a regular edge on it, a regular bevel, and we're going to see what kind of feathers we get. And they're thin feathers, but yeah, I can work with this. And, we just want to get all of these feathers together they got a little bit of a curl, but as I cut into the wood, it digs deeper and deeper in, and so our feathers get fatter and fatter, and so instead of feathers, we have sticks by the time you get to the base. So that's kind of annoying because I want a lot of small feathers. So, like I said before, we have different geometry on this because we have our regular bevel, but our cutting edge is a micro bevel because it got its first sharpening on this at 25 degrees. If you use this a lot, then eventually the entire bevel will be at that one thing instead of a micro bevel, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, so as it starts thin and it curls. But again, it really wants to dig in deep, and so it takes some effort because I'm really trying hard to not get sticks at the base of my feather. And that's part of why I end up cutting a lot of these feathers off, because I'm trying hard not to turn my feather into sticks. But as you can see, you know, it just wants to get fatter and fatter as I go. But it curls over better, and it's a little bit more controllable, that micro bevel edge, than the standard bevel from my Huntsman knife. So I kind of like that. Also, it's always nice with a folding knife to have a blade that locks. So I'd say the micro bevel and the locking blade might make this a little bit superior to the Huntsman. Alright, so now we've got our Mora HD Companion. So we're getting nice curls. And I gotta say, it's staying really thin towards the base. This is not the best wood for this, but it'll do, you know? I seem to have found a solid piece of the wood instead of the punky bits, but because the wood is somewhat punky, it'll go easy and then it'll tighten up. But you see, with that Scandi grind bevel, it stayed thin all the way down, and it's curling up pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that. That is definitely superior to either of the Swiss Army knives. It's worth noting that this is a knife that I have put onto a bench stone and sharpened myself. Like all the way, I took it to a 5,000 grit ceramic stone and then stropped it. So, you know, make of that what you will. This is, out of the box and used once, the Mora Garberg. You know, this particular stick kind of sucks for all of these knives. But I'm getting a really good curl. Really good curl. And it is staying thin all the way to the end of the feathers. And I really, really appreciate that. That I think the out-of-the-box Morgar Berg Scandi Grind is better than the Scandi Grind on the Mora HD Companion. Admittedly, I sharpened this, but I followed the same angle Scandi Grind that it came with. I did not change the angle of the bevel. So, now you have an idea of the different knives, a little bit of information on what happens and what's better, what kind of edge is better, and why I say have a dedicated camp knife, something that's just a knife, in your emergency bag, because you know what? It does things that, you know, your multi-tool knives just can't do as well. And this will be a whole lot easier to ignite than this one with the Victorinox Huntsman. This will help. And you know, all the shavings that I accidentally cut off built up on top of it, because you don't throw those away, you use them. But you know, it's just one of those things where it's like, life is easier with the knife that's meant to actually do one specific task, as opposed to the multi-tool. You know, it's just good at many tasks, but it's a master of none. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments, and have a great day.